Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about what happens to women who operate too much from a masculine energy. I want to talk about the problems in the dance world a little bit and in our approach to some dance training and things which are having negative effects on women's bodies and women's mental health that are partly caused by an emphasis on doing things in a masculine way. And I will obviously explain what I mean by that. Now, I've probably put quite a provocative title on this because I believe that the information I'm going to share with you today is so important that I would like for this video to reach as many people as possible. So I can also say that if at the end you feel like this has been useful and it's opened your eyes to certain things and it's made you aware of certain things, if you would like to share it with another woman in your life, then I would be most grateful for this message to get to as many women as possible, because it does not have to be like this and I believe that we can do better. So I'm going to talk through what I mean by masculine and feminine first, because I realise those are very loaded terms. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally list one by one, what are the actual effects, what are the symptoms for women if you're operating too much from like your masculine energy. And part of that might be because of who we are and what we've lived through. And part of that for sure is just how the dance world is structured and set up, especially things like ballet, for example. So yes, we're going to get very practical in a second, but first let me define what I mean by masculine and feminine, because it's like I realize that these are problematic terms, like especially with kind of the culture at the moment where we're talking about gender fluidity and different things like this. That's fine. Like, I respect everyone's choice to live their life as whatever helps them to feel their healthiest self. But, and at the same time, human beings have been around for like hominids, more than 2 million years, Homo sapiens for at least 200,000 years. And anyone who is alive today is alive because we have masculine and feminine. Well, because we have males and females, right? Otherwise, there is no reproduction and there is no continuation of the species. So while all of these things can coexist, like we can have gender fluidity and we can have, ways of emphasizing different energies of masculine and feminine, but at the same time, there are two sexes necessary for reproduction of the species, and within those two sexes, there are genuine biological and psychological differences between men and women. And I know that that's weirdly unpopular for some reason, but the fact that it's become unpopular, you know what though? Just think about ballet for a second and think about the fact that in general, women are trained more on point, and in general, men do more of specific types of movements, etc. And obviously there's crossover, and that's fun. You know, guys train on point now, women can do just insane, incredible jumps, etc. However, I don't think any elite dancers would be able to claim that men can do what women do as well as what women do, and women can't do what men do as well as what men do, like right at the top when we're talking about elite level. Okay, so if we can just acknowledge that there are differences, like I don't see that one of those is better than the other. I see that there are incredible things that male dancers can do and incredible things that female dancers can do. And like 90% of it is an overlap, and then there's 10% here and 10% there. So I don't see that as anything that's like threatening to the males or females. I see that as something that's complementary, something that can work together, something that we can celebrate. And then of course I'm also up for the playing that happens within dance, like the playing between the gender roles, and that's different to sex. Okay, gender roles is different to sex. So having said that, hopefully if you're still with me at this point in the video, we can agree that there are two different sexes and that we have different bodies and we also have different brains. And I know that's also controversial. It has nothing to do with like, is one sex more intelligent than the other? No, it's just that we have slightly different strengths. Because human beings, men and women, were always supposed to complement each other. We were supposed to help each other. We were supposed to collaborate. And that works best if different people are best at different things. That also happens on an individual level, but it's true for males and females as well. So what is my point of like getting to all of this? We can also talk about masculine and feminine as the yin and yang. So I also believe while there's a place where we're talking very objectively about the differences of the sexes and that if we pretend that there aren't any, and this is kind of what's happened, I feel like, in the last few decades, at least for me growing up as like in the 90s and noughties, like really the message that I was no different to a man and I should be able to achieve everything that a man can and do it in the same way that men do and whatever else, that is damaging to women. That is damaging to us because while we can do that, we also have different ways that work better for us. We also have different goals which are also really great for humanity. We also have different bodies and different things that we need that's slightly different to men, different ways that we work best, different times that we work best, etc. So the idea that let's just pretend everyone is the same, women lose out if we play that game at this point in history, because for the last like few decades, men have really been the ones who have decided how the world of work is going to look, even in, and I'm talking about that in general, but if you look as well in the dance world, the top directors and the top choreographers, if you go like just in general over the last couple of 100 years, the large majority are men, and that's changing now, which is great. But once you start to understand that if we play this game of we're all the same and we can all do everything, if we play it at this point in history, women are going to lose out. Okay, so I'm not up for playing that game. I want to celebrate the things that women are like exceptional at. I want to empower women to know that there's not only one way to do things. There's not only one way to get to success. There's not only one way to live your life. And if you have a female body and brain, chances are the male way of doing things, you can do it, but it's not gonna be the healthiest option for you. So that's kind of the objective sciencey side. Then there's also, I think I just said the yin and yang, but then I got distracted. Yin and yang, we can also understand that we all have, if we just take it as like a conceptual thing, we can use masculine and feminine to just understand different traits. So we all have both within us, okay? Me too. Like there's parts of me that we could call masculine, there's parts of me that we could call feminine. Now this is more of like just a concept that's helpful when we're thinking about different traits. So the really kind of basic one, for example, would be that you would have a container, so some kind of structure, and then whatever was inside that container, say like water, that would be the feminine. So the masculine is a container, the feminine is the contents that can flow, etc. That's kind of an overly simplified, kind of silly example, but just to kind of explain what I mean. So we all also have both of those energies within us, and then at the same time there are genuine biological and psychological differences between men and women. And those should be celebrated because they are designed by nature to be complementary. Okay, nature wasn't like, let's give women a hard time, let's make women not as good as men. Like that's just, I take a breath there because I'm just thinking of like me at 18 years old, like not really understanding that wasn't what it was, that wasn't the truth, and that it's a wonderful privilege to be a woman just as much as it is to be a man. But we need to, every single woman, if we can own this, especially in the dance world, but also in our lives in general, we are going to create the change because we will just not stand for being forced to do things in a more masculine way. So, let's go through like what can actually happen. Let me also just say, before I start going through the actual list that I've got here, if you resonate with any of these points, there's various things you can do. The first thing is to start to become aware in your own life of like when this is happening, and just start to ask yourself some questions about it. So hopefully if you watch this full video, you'll have this in the back of your mind when you're actually going through your life, and you can notice like, oh yeah, I remember that thing, and am I doing that now? And then when you're aware of something, you start to have a choice of it. When you're not aware of it and it's just on autopilot, or it's just your habit, it's natural pattern, and you don't even realize that you have a choice. So once you have awareness, you have a choice. Do I want to continue like this, or do I want to change it? Once you have brought awareness to if any of these things you happen to do or they're affecting you, these are symptoms that you notice in yourself, I love to recommend seeking support through the changes, because, and let me just say, I'll get onto this in a second, but resisting support, thinking that we have to do everything by ourselves and prove ourselves and show how independent we are, that is a very masculine way of looking at the world and operating in the world. And it does not bode well, honestly, for men as well. Like I said, we all need to have a balance within us of masculine and feminine, but one will maybe be slightly more than the other. But men also need more feminine in their lives in some ways. So what I'm trying to say with this is, if you're someone that really resists support, that's already, and I'm laughing because that was me for a very long time, that's already a sign that there's a lot of resistance to the feminine parts of you. And when you're in denial of parts of you, you can never feel whole. Like, I lived a lot of my life feeling like I wasn't enough. And I honestly think part of that was because my measuring stick was what a man was. So I was never going to feel enough. But as soon as I figured out how to change over to the feminine, it wasn't like that. It took a while, and I had to go through a lot of healing, and I had to really look not only at my thoughts, but also the way that I do things, and then who I actually am as a human being, as a person, as a woman. But once I realized that, I realized, oh, I'm more than enough. As a woman, I am more than enough, as we all are. So what I wanted to say is that if you are resistant to support, that is a good indication that there is a resistance to accepting the feminine parts of your nature if you are a woman. Same for men, but I'm speaking, this video is really meant for women, okay? If you're watching this as a man, I'm very grateful that you're here to learn from our perspective things. Like, I'm very grateful for that, but just know that I'm thinking of women as we go along with this. If you would like to receive support from me as a coach, this is a process that I take clients through. We figure out what is actually the best way to operate in this world in order to do the things that you want to do in your life, and above all, to feel the way you want to feel in your life. For example, that you want to feel healthy, that you want to feel like your life is meaningful, that you want to feel like you have community, that you have people that really genuinely love and care about you, that you don't have to keep proving yourself to, whatever it is. If you want to work with me on that, there's obviously many other great people that you can work with as well. But I have summer openings for one-to-one coaching, so just get in touch with me and we'll chat. Let's do this list then. So, number 1, symptom for women of operating from your masculine energy: muscular tension. Now, obviously, when you're actually dancing, that's necessary. At least some of it is necessary. But first of all, when you come out of the studio, you don't need to be holding on to all that muscle tension. And I have talked about this before, I think more on my other channel, on my podcast channel, but I don't think that I relaxed my abs for like a decade and a half, honestly. And I learned to do it in the dance studio, and then I didn't release it. And what does that tell you? If you're clenching your abs all the time, that's sending a message to your brain that you're in a state of like alertness, tension, stress, something's going to happen, I need to be prepared, I can't relax. And so just from learning something from dance, which is useful in the dance studio, if you take that out into your life all the time, that is then sending different signals about what's going on in our life, and that's not helpful. Okay, so increase muscular tension. Next one, heightened stress response. So I'm not going to go, this video is already 15 minutes long, so I could literally give the evolutionary explanation for every single one of these. I can explain why it was that our human ancestors, like prehistoric ancestors, why there was a difference between how men deal with stress response and how women deal with stress response. I can explain why it wasn't a problem that men carried extra muscular tension all the time and why it was a problem for women. So I'm not going to have time. That would be really like a masterclass in this. It would take me probably like 2 or 3 hours to do that. But just know that there are reasons for all of these things as well. So heightened stress response. Stress is one of our body's ways to help us take action and to do. So super helpful. Women need to obviously have their stress response activated as well in the right moments, and when we're doing something that is really productive that we want to do, but we should not be in a heightened alert and stress response all the time. And actually my ebook, which is just about to launch, is probably already launched actually by the time this video goes out, called Body-Based Intelligence, 5 evolutionary principles for women. I explain all about how so many of us are living in survival mode when we don't need to be, and how that's really damaging for our physical health and for our mental health. So again, could do a whole 2 hours on that. But let's move on to the next one. Any issues with menstruation or with the menstrual cycle, with period pains, with any of those things, there's always like many different causes and influences for that. But a big part of the fact that there's a rapid increase in that over like just a few generations, like if we go back a couple of generations to our grandmothers, it was not like how it is for our generation in terms of the problems that they had with like period pains or endometriosis or PCOS. I hope I said that in the right order. I always get the letters mixed up. I'm a little bit dyslexic. And or fibroids or whatever it is, womb conditions. While there are certainly other things that play into this, like elements of our diet, elements of how much sleep we get, but that's also related to how much stress we have and muscle tension, those things. So it all is like interlinked. But once we understand how much the body and the mind are connected, are doing very similar things, and that the signals are always going both of these ways, when you understand that if you're operating from your masculine and you're in denial of the feminine parts of you, and if you don't trust the feminine parts of you, and if you categorize the feminine aspects of yourself as lazy or weak or silly or frivolous or too traditional or whatever it is, your body feels that. If you are judging yourself, your body feels that, and your womb feels that. And there is more and more scientific research now coming out about exactly this link between the body and the mind. A really interesting one is The Body Keeps the Score. That book I read about 4 years ago now, I think. Doesn't talk like specifically about women and about these problems, but it outlines this relationship between the body and the mind and trauma, and how trauma is stored in the body, and how, yes, all of these things are interrelated. So if you have issues with like period related issues, womb related issues, as I said, seek a specialist, look for all the possible physical reasons for that. So could be, like I said, diet or different lifestyle things or whatever. But also consider that there's something emotional going on there as well. if you guys don't know, I used to have endometriosis, and I had a few years of really like deliberate, intentional healing, but I couldn't heal it until I got in touch with my femininity, basically, until I allowed my body to operate from more of a feminine energy. I still have access to my masculine, like I can use it whenever I need it. Like that's a good thing about dancers. Like we've been very much trained in a way that is linear, object seeking, productive, efficient, pushing through the stress, going hard, pushing our bodies to exhaustion, all of these things. The male body is more adapted to do than the female body in those very specific instances where it's like goal oriented. Now women are incredibly resilient, and we can do the things that are very much like end goal oriented, but we can also do resilience when it comes to things like raising an infant, and that is a daily thing. That resilience, it comes out in a different way, okay? So again, this isn't to say that men are better than women or women are better than men. And also you might just totally disagree with what I'm saying in this video, and that's absolutely fine too. But yes, I've stuck on this point for a little while because I think we absolutely ignore the emotional sides of our health symptoms, of our physical health issues. And they're nearly always, even if they have a physical part too, they nearly always have an emotional part as well. And again, there's more and more research coming out about this now. It's still a little bit more new, although some people have been doing this for like decades already and have known this for a very long time. And I think it's especially important for women, That will also give us an indication of why that research has been left until later, because male bodies have been the ones that have been used much more in clinical trials than women's bodies. Men have been the ones doing the trials more than women have been. There's a whole host of reasons why things are structured as they are, and I'm not here to like complain about it or cry about it or anything like that. I'm just here to change it. That's it. I don't want to go looking for blame. I don't want to go looking for like pointing fingers. For me, it's totally a waste of time to do that. And instead, I'm interested in, for example, making this video so that I can just highlight some of the issues that come when we're not connected to our feminine nature, and when we basically, want to live life in alignment with a male body instead of with a female body. And again, many of the things are the same, but there are some things which are different, and those things are important, and those things have been forgotten. Okay. Burnout. That is a sure sign of operating from a masculine energy in terms of, and again, they're like maybe more things involved, of course, but burnout is an indication that you're not connected to your body signal, because you've been able to get to a point where you're that exhausted that it leads to burnout. So this is not just like, I got a bit tired, I listened to my body, I figured out what I needed, I did the thing that I needed, and then I felt refreshed and energized again. This is a sign that you're so disconnected from your body and your body's needs that you've overridden every single one of those little tired signs, the little voice that your body has that tells you something's not quite right, or I kind of think I need this thing, and you've overwritten it with whatever the goal was in your head, whether that is like a performance or an exam, or whether it's just the fact that you've promised yourself that you will go to every single class and you'll never miss one for like the whole term or whatever it is. And that, again, is quite a masculine way of running things. And I don't even think it's a healthy masculine thing. Some things are healthy masculine and they work better for men. They don't work as well for women, but they're healthy for them. This thing, I think, is not healthy for anyone. If we are overwriting the signals of our body, whether we're male or female, that is not conducive to our long-term health and probably short-term health as well. So burnout is another symptom. Okay, I talked about this already. Difficulty in vulnerability and seeking support. women are experts at creating deep and meaningful relationships. Our literal hormonal blueprint is made for that. We've always counted on each other as women, and we count on men as well, but it's in a slightly different way. We've always needed and thrived in sisterhood. And I really feel like some dance styles in the dance world celebrate that, and I feel like other dance styles in the dance world deliberately pit women against each other and deliberately encourage competition. Men thrive in competitive environments. Their biology is great for that. And again, I could give all the evolutionary reasons for that and explain why men tended to do that, because competition was I'll give just a few examples on this one because I think they're just fascinating. Men used to use competition and sport and actually having this like win-lose structure as a way to show that they would be a really great partner. Okay, so it was kind of like, the peacock tails. Only the males have those fancy peacock tails with all the colours. I don't know if you knew that. Only the males, and that is to impress the females. So the female says, that's a really good peacock. I want to have babies with that peacock. Okay, and for men, human men, using competition was a way to do that without killing each other, because sometimes in the animal kingdom, males will fight to the death, or at least they'll fight to like grave injury, and then one of them will leave. And usually animals will only fight until one of them is like really injured and they're like, I'm not going to win, and then it'll be the end and the other one will be the winner. But when humans got so good at killing each other, and by that I mean like we learned how to make tools and we learned how to make weapons, once men had figured that out, it wasn't actually good anymore for men to compete to the death. Okay, it wasn't good for the village, it wasn't good for the community, it wasn't good for the tribe. And so a really great way that men could compete excuse me guys, I'm getting excited about this topic. I love talking about evolution. An ingenious way that men figured out how to avoid that was, why do we do competitions that have rules? And there's a definite winner and a definite loser, but we're not going to have to like severely injure or kill one another in order for that to happen. So, and you see that's the origins of sport. And so men are built to thrive in competition. They love it. Their bodies respond well to it. Their bodies also, if you've noticed, like men are pretty resilient from coming back from like losses and failures. Like that's built into them as well. For women, we can do it. We can come back, we can pick ourselves up, we can move forward, but we're not as built for that because we never were supposed to be like competing against each other in that kind of overt way. It was a little bit more covert. That doesn't mean there's no female competition. There is. It's just, it goes in a different way. It's a different thing. And so, how did I get into this from vulnerability and seeking support? That was the point I was trying to make. Competition. Yes, okay. And also, men bond during competition. Like, men can really, like, form bonds. And men also form bonds working towards a specific goal together. Women can do that too. Of course we can. Of course we can form bonds within sport. And of course we can form bonds working towards a shared goal, obviously. But we can also create really strong bonds without any of that. We can create really strong bonds without any competition and without any need to have a very specific goal with a very specific outcome. We can create bonds because we value human beings looking out for each other. We can form bonds because we love just supporting each other and cheering for each other and wanting the best for each other and looking out for each other when something's difficult or something's gone wrong, and that kind of community feeling. Women are so good at that. Women are incredible at this. And again, we can all do both. But why wouldn't we play to our strengths? So for women who like don't trust in deep female friendships, in women who don't trust that kind of supportive community, in women who feel like competition is the best way, achieving these together is the best way, that can work. But there's something missing, because actually all human beings need everything. We need all of that. But if you notice, our societies are very much set up for like career goal oriented success, productivity, GDP, growth, more money, more success. All of these things are very masculine values, and we can absolutely have those values as well. Remember what I said about that we've all got both as well. But if we ignore the other side of it, and let me just say as well, like in the dance world, if you're someone that's absolutely obsessed with technique, and you think that musicality is a bit and you think artistry is a bit like, oh, well, I'll get to that. That's a sure sign as well that you're like very much operating from your masculine energy. And again, that was me for the longest time. Please know there's absolutely no judgment in any of this video, because all of these things that I'm saying were me. And I have so much love and compassion for like 24-year-old Natalie. Like I love her very dearly, but also she was really struggling. Like she was looking good on the outside and people were clapping her, but she was really struggling with like terrible period pains, with muscle tension all the time, like all the things that I've basically listed, like not feeling like she could really depend on people, that she had to prove herself, that she had to be independent, and blah blah blah. All of those things, that was me. Couldn't be vulnerable, like couldn't deal with how I was a perfectionist. Again, that's related to like this masculine thing of it's a very specific outcome and it needs to be exactly like this, rather than process oriented or community oriented. So yes, we're not supposed to be isolated from other people in an emotional sense or a physical sense. But it's even more important for women to have this for our health. It's important for men to have it too, but it can look slightly different. It can have a different vibe to it. It can have a different like type of camaraderie to it. Yes, I'll leave it there. I've probably talked about this one point for like 10 minutes. Emotional exhaustion. And there are different ways to deal with this. I've taught on my other channel so much about emotions, because emotions are the driving force of life. If anyone thinks that logic is the driving force of life, if anyone thinks that it's goals and objectives that are the driving force of life, they haven't really understood what human beings are. And it's part of our job as women to remind people that emotions are absolutely essential to looking after each other. Emotions are absolutely essential for caring for the planet. Emotions are absolutely essential to signpost us to healthy options, to things that are good for us, to things that will help us thrive, to healthy partnerships, relationships, etc. And I must point out here that emotions don't necessarily always signpost to those things. Sometimes emotions are signposting us to something that's similar to a trauma that we've already suffered, that we haven't processed, and that we're trying to heal through repeating a pattern instead of healing it somewhere healthy. So, and that's just one example. So I'm not saying that emotions are always right. I'm not saying that emotions are we always have to trust all of them. In fact, in my book, in my ebook, this is basically what it is learning out how to figure out when our emotions are really useful and when our emotions are not useful. It's not that they're not useful, but when our emotions are signaling something that we need to heal rather than something that we need to do. Okay, though that's very different and an important distinction. But anyway, emotional exhaustion will be a good indication. It could be two things. Either you can be completely disconnected from your emotions as a dancer. I actually feel like that's slightly more common in the female dancers that I know, and that was my thing. I was a little bit more like, in moments I would feel a lot, and then in other moments I would feel like nothing, because I didn't want to feel any pain, not physical and not emotional. And again, I've talked a lot about that before. Okay. Suppression of intuition. If you just heard me say the word intuition and rolled your eyes, that's an indication as well. When we override our intuition with logic all the time, we end up becoming cold and harsh. There are biological and evolutionary reasons why men were supposed to be harsher than women because of the things they actually needed to do in order to help the tribe survive. Women were not supposed to be cold and harsh. Imagine bringing up a child cold and harsh. Now, again, just because you're a woman doesn't now, in the modern world, and past as well, doesn't mean that you have to have children, but you need to understand that your body is built for that. I've talked about this before as well, but it's not like if you suddenly decide, I'm not going to have children. It's not like your uterus drops out and your body can just be without it, because that would actually be better, because it's a little bit inconvenient for the masculine world to have periods, right? But it's essential for life. It's essential for life. Periods are essential for life. And so just because you make the decision, I'm not going to have children, if you were to, at that point, if your body would eject your uterus, you wouldn't need to have periods, and that takes up quite a lot of energy, so you would save some energy that you could use for other things. But that is not how it works. That is not how the body works. The human body is here for more life, and we can make choices about that, what we want to do with that information. But that is what the body, now we have a mind as well. And those two things are very much interconnected. Anyway, back to intuition. So, yes, logic makes things cold and harsh, because when you're just logical about something, you can justify anything. And you'll see that some of the most evil dictators in the world, what they were trying to do in terms of their objective, the actions that they took in terms of their objective, were logical actions to take because of what they stated their objective was. Logic has led to some of the worst atrocities in history. What's the thing that prevents that? And they're all, pretty much all, the big ones that are coming to mind right now have all been committed by men. And why? And I explained why men have more propensity towards cold and harshness, because we also needed that to survive. We didn't used to live in a world where there was food in the fridge. Quite often, eating involved death. I mean, it still does for many people. They just don't see the death unless you're vegan. But even if you're a vegan, it's death of a plant, although obviously completely different thing to killing an animal. But again, difference between men and women. It's not that women never did any hunting of small mammals or little things. They absolutely did, and still do in some parts of the world. Anyway, I've gone back into a whole evolutionary thing. I could talk about this forever. But what I want to say is that intuition, the gut feelings that we have about things sometimes, and our feeling that this isn't quite right, or this doesn't feel kind, or this doesn't actually feel considerate of other people, or this doesn't whatever. When we overwrite that because someone said, yeah, but you said you wanted to reach this objective and that requires you to do this step and this step and this step, I think that we should listen much more to women's intuition, and we can balance that with the logic and the structure and the rationalization and all of that kind of thing. But emotions are the things that keep us being nice to each other, being kind to each other. Emotions are the things that help us to say, no, I won't do that. Or I want to help this person. That's an emotional thing. It's not a logical thing. It's an emotional thing. Now, there may be logic that comes on top of that of how am I going to do that? Great. But the initial want to help and to care for and to nurture and to love, all of that comes from emotion. And so again, connecting to our intuition of actually like, this feels like right, or this feels like a good thing. And again, we can't always listen to our intuition because sometimes it's trauma coming back up, and then that is something that can be healed. So all of these things are complex and nuanced, which is why I personally think it's a really good idea to navigate that with a coach or a therapist. I've done that. I've had my own coach. I've worked with also a therapist. I've worked with embodiment coaching. I've worked with lots of things. Then obviously I've trained in that myself, and I've got 4 years of experience of being a coach for other people. So there's really a huge place for being able to do this with someone who already knows some of the stuff, and someone who knows how to help you to figure out all the rest of it, because it's different for everyone. Yes, okay, we're nearly there, guys. Overemphasis on external validation. If the dance world isn't full of external validation, I don't know what is. Oh my goodness. External validation is built in from the very first ballet class. And it's not there in all dance forms, but in quite a few in our societies it is. Whenever you've got a performance oriented dance form rather than participation, where the important thing is doing the dance, enjoying the dance, being with other people in the dance, yes, getting better at the dance, but while it's within the participation, versus when it's purely performance oriented, there's so much external validation that's going on there. Now, hopefully for lots of people, there's also internal validation, but I just know so many dancers, and myself included, who struggle with the fact that most of it is external validation. And what happens when we've got external validation is the driver, is that we overwrite our intuition. We overwrite the body's need for like rest or to do something in a slightly different way. We overwrite what's happening in our body when we've got our period. We overwrite the fact that we could be doing this with in a way with a few more female friends that would work better for us, or whatever it is. We overwrite it because of the need for external validation. And so much of the time, can I just say, I hope you've realised by now how many women are operating from masculine energy. Even if your dance teacher was a woman, like you looked at her and you're like, yep, that's a woman. Chances are, not all of them, but a lot of them are giving off masculine energy. So don't think that just because it's a woman in front of you, you're not being trained in a masculine way, because so many people are. So many people are. And the pattern just keeps perpetuating over and over and over again, which is why I care so much about making this video. It's why I care so much about the work that I do. It's why I care so much about helping women, because I don't want women to have like terrible, terrible period pains if any part of that is caused by a disconnection to their own femininity. I don't want women who aren't able to slow down and be present with the people they love and form deep connections and relationships because they're so busy chasing like some particular dance goal that someone else has basically said, you're not good enough unless you reach this thing. I want them to reach that thing from a place of enjoying the process, feeling supported, feeling healthy, not sacrificing any part of their physical or mental health. I mean, maybe sometimes little things. I know dance is very demanding, but no more than is necessary. That's why I care about all of this so much, because also it's so doable. It's so doable. Like I've done it, and obviously my career has changed. So some people might look at that and be like, oh, but you did it, but you're not dancing anymore. I mean, I still dance, but not in the same way. But I know other people, even professional dancers, who have made this switch over and who are really enjoying it in a completely different way. And so connected to, I never got around to saying, when I talked earlier about musicality and artistry, some parts of those are really the feminine. And this ability to express and to connect to emotion, and this concentration of like the energy moving through the body rather than the placement of the body. Those two things are different. And the best dancers can access both. But there's such a focus now on technique. Like, we just want to be, and it's happening. It's not the dancer's fault only. I mean, it's not the dancer's fault. It's the whole thing is set up. The whole system is set up so that we as spectators just want to be entertained by virtuosity. Not everyone, but that's kind of like the direction it's going. Like, we want to, it's more and more of like circus act. And then also that's coming down from the top as well. So it's like, can we also connect to the humanness, to the preciousness of life, to the fact that that movement has been and gone. And obviously video has changed that, but there's something so important about that. Like, dance was always supposed to be about the doing of it. It wasn't supposed to be about the perfection of it. It wasn't supposed to be about the recording of it either. It was supposed to be about the moment, the lived body experience of dancing, and especially with other people. And remember that dance always used to be about participation. So, yes. Last one. Struggle with surrender and flow. You will literally be able to see this in some people's movements. Have you seen, and this was me, I remember one of my teachers being like, Natalie, why are you so robotic in your movements? And that was because I was so focused on getting the technique perfect. I was so focused on outside objectives, like getting my leg higher and doing everything right. I was so focused on like keeping everything tight and tense. I was so focused on like the masculine aspects, which need to be there to a certain extent. Of course they do. Please do train technique. Please do care about these things. Please do set yourself objectives. Please all of this. But that is only half of the story. And yet for so many dancers, it's the whole story, or nearly all of the story. And it's not. And so I remember like this question of like, why am I so robotic? And I couldn't answer it. And lots of dancers are like, there's just something wrong with me. I can't do it. It seems like other people are just naturally able to like flow or whatever. And like, yeah, you can even copy the movement of what that looks like, but it's different when it looks and feels different when it's coming from inside. And part of that is being able to surrender to the movement rather than trying to control the movement. Part of that is about surrendering to the music rather than trying to keep up with the music. Part of that is about surrendering to the experience of other people being there and moving with you rather than trying to be the perfect participant in that or whatever it is. So that doesn't happen like that. And I know that dance teachers get annoyed with their dancers because they're like, just do this. This is what I'm telling you. And it's, see, trying to get feminine through using masculine methods does not work. Shouting at your dancers will never allow them to surrender, ever. Getting annoyed, frustrated, ignoring your dancers, any of those things will never allow them to become great artists, great expressors, great in their musicality, and this ability to surrender into the movement. The only way to do that is through connection. It's through cultivating trusting relationships in the dance studio between dancer and teacher, whatever. And for the dancer herself to trust herself and to trust her body and to allow herself to make mistakes and to allow herself to experiment and play and bring in the masculine elements as well to balance that out. That process is similar for men, but it's so important for women. It's so important. Okay, this has been a really long video. I'm feeling like it's probably going to have been very controversial for some people, and that's fine. I wanted to share this, as I said, because I really believe that when we become aware of this, like, why would you sacrifice your whole life to dancing in a masculine way when you could dance in a way that celebrates both masculine and the feminine, the wonderful, beautiful things about your body. What about it's so funny because like people forget the moments through history when this has been very much like the focus. And if you look at Isadora Duncan, if you don't know who she is or what she was about, she broke from the ballet tradition specifically, kind of, I don't think she used this vocabulary, but that's what she was doing. She was flowing, she was surrendering, she was going into her feminine, she was becoming soft, she wasn't holding all the muscle tension, she was flowing. And then we forgot, like that happened. And then contemporary dance was born out of that. And then a lot of contemporary dance got swept up again in the masculine. So, and there's a lot of contemporary that isn't so beautiful. And there's also a lot of ballet now, which I feel like is much more balanced. So this is not, again, like trying to complain about anything that is currently in existence. What exists right now. The question is, what do we want to do as individual people within this system, whether it's professional or whether you're just someone who enjoys dancing or who goes to classes or who does adult performances or whatever it is. What do we want to do? And I can tell you what I want to do. And I've done this and it's hard. I'll say that as well. It's not easy because you're going to be doing something that's out of the ordinary. You're going to be putting your own body before dance outcomes. And guess what? You can prioritize both your body, your health, your emotions, and your dancing. Anyone who tells you that's not possible is only looking at the masculine, like they cannot see the feminine. They're like this. And they might not know it because it might not apply to them because either they're a man and they don't need to operate as much from that, although they will benefit as well. Or they're a woman who's completely disconnected from like those feminine aspects of herself. So I hope you've kind of got from this video how passionate I am about this, because it doesn't have to be like this. Can I just say this also has repercussions in our actual romantic relationships. If you don't know how to surrender in any moment to your partner, that's going to cause problems. It just will. And again, speaking from experience. But it is the biggest gift that a woman can give herself and the people in her life and her family and her friends and her dancing. One of the biggest gifts we can give ourselves is to own our femininity. And I hope that you've noticed today that I haven't said anything about femininity being like dainty and pink and cute, because it's not. Femininity is as freaking powerful as masculinity. It's just a slightly different power. Femininity is as raw and real and authentic and deeply connected. Femininity has nothing to do with the stereotypes of like gender roles of female. I hope that that has been clear. If it hasn't, I'm saying it now very specifically. This is not about that. And by the way, elements of that are fun to play with too. Like you see the tutus and the tiaras and the beautiful makeup and whatever. Can we celebrate that too? Yes, but that is not really what I'm talking about here. That's not what I'm talking about here. Because you can also put a tutu on, I have put a tutu on, wear loads of makeup, wear pink, and not be at all connected to your feminine in terms of actually embodying it in the body. Like we can just play a part, and that's very different to connecting to who we are. Very, very different. Okay, so if this video has been interesting, if you're thinking like, okay, I can see myself in some of these things, I want to understand more about where they come from, I want to understand how I can change them, I want to understand, or I want to receive support, that can be step one. I mean, there are different step ones, there's not a like 5-step process, but a really good step one for people who are in their masculine energy is to receive support. Is to receive loving guidance and having the feminine witness the feminine in you. It's really difficult to do this when it's only the masculine witnessing you. And as I said, a lot of women are just looking at other women from a masculine perspective. Like, how much productivity can this person do? How much can this person like force themselves to get their outcomes? How much can this person, whatever, like that's a masculine lens. In order, like, it's so healing and also so terrifying to have someone see the feminine in you. Like, imagine if we were on a call right now, like imagine we were working together one-on-one, and I'm gonna deliberately drop into my feminine, yes, soften, surrender, not want anything from you, not expect anything from you, just be with you and see your feminine. That can be really scary for people. That can be really scary for people because that's vulnerable. That is vulnerability. And it's one of the most healing and beautiful experiences that a woman can ever allow herself to have. And if you can do it in a safe space with a coach, then you start to be able to do it in your relationships. And then, I don't know whether to say this because people might be like, oh, okay, she's crazy. And then to nature and to life is a beautiful thing to be able to surrender to life. And life gets so much more enjoyable and easier and flowing, and it can take you where you want to go when you surrender to what life is, at the same time as still moving forward and taking intentional steps. That's the masculine. Okay, I am scared to say this, but I also really do want to hear your thoughts and opinions on this video. Hopefully some things have resonated. Again, maybe like the whole framing of masculine and feminine has been annoying. That's fine. But I would love to hear from you. I will have linked down below how you can get in touch with me if you are interested in one-to-one coaching with me. I'll also have my ebook linked if you would like to get deeper into all the evolutionary stuff about this. We talk about, like in my ebook, I explain how the nervous system is related to our survival responses. I talk much more about the strengths of women specifically in our biology and our psychology and why we have it and how we can actually like start to work and live in alignment with our body rather than just trying to copy how men do it. That's ridiculous. Like, just think about that. That is ridiculous. Why would we copy how men do stuff? We're not men. Like, why don't we set our amazing objectives and things that we want to do in our life and then do it our way? And that doesn't mean that we can't learn things from them. Of course we can, but they need to learn stuff from us as well. And if we just do it, copy how they do it, that's not going to work. So it's time, ladies. It is time. Okay. Sending you all lots of love, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.